loudly as I can.
Look at that.
I'm going to be very brief, so you don't have to hear very much. I'm Pete Cantu, Mayor of Plainsboro Township, and I'm delighted to be here tonight to welcome Congresswoman Bonnie Watson Coleman to Plainsboro and also to this open house and town house. I guess they call it a town meeting that she conducts periodically throughout the
Get to
district.
the microphone.
Pardon me?
Get closer to the microphone.
All right. I don't think it's me. As I was saying, I'm going to be very brief in my remarks to allow an opportunity for as many of you to ask as many questions as you'd like. But I would like to give a brief resume of some of the things that Bonnie Watson Coleman represents as a congressman for this district. She's currently serving her third term in the House of Representatives. That follows 8 consecutive terms in the New Jersey State Assembly. Throughout her career, Bonnie Watson Coleman has been a dedicated and outspoken advocate for women, for the poor, for the disadvantaged, and for the vulnerable. And that truly is the case with her. You can see it by her record. So she is currently serving in her third term, as I said, in the House of Representatives. She is an active member of the Congressional Black Caucus, Progressive Caucus, Women's Caucus, and Equity Caucus. She has just joined the recently formed Congressional Caucus on Black-Jewish Relations. Her legislation is focused on working families, legislation that expands the Earned Income Tax Credit, long-term unemployment training and hiring incentives, as well as corporate profit sharing. She has also introduced sensible gun control reforms, environmental protections, mental health and suicide prevention measures, and women's health protections. So it is, I said, when you think about it, given the challenges that we face today, both as a nation and as a Congress, I think I am delighted to have somebody of her quality representing us in this district. So without further ado, I'd ask you to give a warm welcome to Bonnie Watson Coleman.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I got a big mouth anyway. First of all, I want to thank the mayor and the first lady. This is for the mayor, right? For hosting me tonight. And I want to thank all of you. Something's getting ready to happen.
Oh, that's much better.
Magic. Thank you. That's good. I want to thank you all for being here tonight because it's a nasty night out there. I think I'd rather have rain than mist. Just messy. I want to thank you for a couple of things. I've had a very interesting 2 years. I had diagnosed and beat lung cancer last year. And I'm grateful to all the goodwill that came from Plainsboro and the people here who told me, Bonnie, you can do it. And with God's help and some great doctors, we did do it. I am cancer-free. I then just recently had, which was something that was scheduled to do last year, which was to put a new knee in because I had ruined the other one with torn meniscus. So I am 5 weeks into that, and I am determined I'm walking on it without any devices. So what I'm going to do here tonight is I want to spend some time just kind of briefing you up to date on some of the things that are happening, and then I want to hear from you. And then I'm going to do that from the table, if you don't mind, so that I can sit next to my mayor. So I know you know we've been busy in Washington, D.C., but I'm not sure you know what we've been doing because the newspapers aren't necessarily picking it up. The social media isn't necessarily picking it up. But I wanted to tell you that since the Democratic majority in the House of Representatives since January, we have indeed sent over 200 bills to the Senate to be passed. And they are a variety of pieces of legislation that we think represent our core value, which is we work for the people. So of course we sent over, and I got so many cheat sheets here because I don't kind of want to forget anything that I think is significant. We've sent legislation over there that will lower health care costs and protect people with pre-existing conditions. We're right now debating a bill that is just about ready to be marked up when we get back, which is to really lower prescription drug prices for people. We've sent at least 3 pieces of legislation over that addresses the whole issue of preventing gun violence. Very common sense legislation that has to do with background checks and loopholes and things of that nature. Nothing really daring, so to speak, just common sense legislation. We have done the Paycheck Fairness Act and legislation to finally raise the minimum wage. We sent for the reauthorization of the Violence Against Women Act. You know the threat that we've had to what's happening with the internet. So we sent legislation over there to support net neutrality and make sure that it isn't how much money you have, how fast you get your information up before other people. Of course, we've passed certain acts regarding climate change. I happen to be also a sponsor of the New Green Act. I think that that's part of the New Deal for this generation, and I think it's very aspirational. We may not get it all, but it's a good standard to try to reach. We have passed the Equality Act, which is to eliminate the last vestiges of discrimination against the LGBTQ community. And we've done things to protect the consumer affairs, consumer rights of individuals, as this administration has worked so very hard to dismantle the Consumer Affairs Bureau, and how important it is to protect us from such predatory things as payday lending and everything else. And we obviously have been front and center in trying to ensure that we treat immigrants who are coming across this border humanely, and that we're fighting every separation of a child from their parent. And we're disgusted and hurt and upset, and it's devastating to see what's happening at the borders. And as a member of Congress and a member of a couple of committees, Homeland Security as well as Appropriations, I've had the good fortune to visit the border, and the misfortune is what I had to see. In addition to that sort of variety of legislation, which I think you would agree has to deal with for the people, and trying to open up government, ensure voting rights are protected, take out the dark money in campaigns and things of that nature, that's what you send us there to do, to make sure that government does its work on behalf of the people, not at the expense of the people. There's some legislation that I've been particularly working on. The mayor was kind enough to mention some of it. It does involve preventing gun violence. It does things like, if you're buying ammunition online, you've got to pick it up from a dealer and identify yourself. If you buy over 1,000 rounds in a month period, it alarms or alerts law enforcement, just in case law enforcement needs to look into the issue to see if it's a possible problem. And then also a piece of legislation says if you want to buy a gun, you need to learn how to use it, you need to register it, and you need to take a course. I've also worked on legislation that I thought was important, because we were finding that a lot of older people found themselves pushed out of a job, and that there was no incentive for employers to hire them, because they could hire younger people with perhaps less experience, but capable at lower wages. So we did introduce a bill that will provide a tax credit to employers to incentivize them to hire older individuals. We also did the same thing for returning citizens who have been formerly incarcerated. Additionally, we tried to protect individuals who found themselves underemployed or unemployed, needing to tap into their 401ks and other accounts. And so we have introduced legislation that would stop them from charging you big fees and having to do that. We've tried to work very hard locally for things like in the area, flooding and other sort of environmental issues. We've stood up against the pipeline, you all know that, the Penny's pipeline. We continue to stand up against it because they haven't convinced anybody but those who want to get rich from it that it's needed, that New Jerseyans will benefit in any way, shape, or form. And I've worked on a number of healthcare bills. The Healthy Moms Act, which says if a woman finds herself pregnant and needs a different kind of healthcare insurance, ought to have an opening for her. She ought to be able to identify what she needs and get it at that time. But basically, I think that the legislation that I focus on has to do with trying to level the playing field for everybody. And so I wanted you to kind of know what's going on down there in Washington, D.C., that we can, as they say, we can chew gum and walk at the same time. We're legislating because we have a responsibility to legislate, and we have an agenda, and that agenda means lowering healthcare costs, ensuring the safety and security to our communities, getting corruption out of government, you name it. It's the agenda for the people. And at the same time, we have a responsibility to protect the Constitution of the state of New Jersey and to hold our president accountable for what he is doing. So I can just kind of move on into the I word, impeach. And we can talk a little bit about what's happening there, because it seems that stuff is evolving daily. And every time it seems that the president speaks, he creates another possibility of an article of impeachment. So he kind of needs to shut up. But he has such an ego that he'd never do that. Adam Schiff is the chairman of the Intelligence Committee. And that committee has taken the lead in addressing the issue of the call with Zelensky, the president of the Ukraine, conversation that the president had, the desire for the president to seek help from Zelensky against Joe Biden, who's one of the presidential candidates, we all know. That act in of itself is a violation of the law. Today, I understand he invited not only Ukraine to continue to investigate something it had already investigated and found absolutely no cause of action to pursue, he invited China in on the deal to help him out with the 2020 elections by investigating Joe Biden and his son again. That's another act that is impeachable.
Yeah.
So people are asking, well, what are you all doing? Today there was a deposition taken from the special envoy, Mr. Volker. I cannot tell you what was said. I don't know exactly everything. I'll tell you that Republicans came out saying that everything was hunky-dory. And Jamie Raskin, who I have a lot of respect for as a constitutional scholar, said, don't believe any of that. I can't tell you now, but you'll find out soon enough. And I believe Jamie Raskin when he said that. There are a number of other people that the committee thinks that it needs to interview, to cross T's and dot I's, because we got one shot at this. At the same time, the other four committees, led by Elijah Cummings in Oversight, Jerry Nadler in Judiciary, Maxine Waters in Financial Services, and Representative Engel in Foreign Affairs, they're also doing their investigations into possible, probable, more than likely impeachable acts, whether it's obstruction of government, the emoluments clause, whether or not the family is trading on the presidency, you name it. This is an unprecedented time. And so the speaker was very resistant to the pressure that was being placed on her to do this sooner. And she even once said, let's be patient, let's get all the information, because we have got to communicate with the people what's actually happening, and they need to see it. And when this thing happened with the Ukraine, this was like mud in your eye. There's no denying this. You ain't got to figure it out. You don't have to read 400 pages in a Mueller report. You can see this for yourself. You can look at 5 pages of the so-called transcript, which is not really a transcript of the telephone call, and you can take confidence in the fact that the whistleblower, even though he didn't personally observe that telephone call, it has been substantiated over and over and over again. Then the president substantiates it. So, you know, here we go from there. The speaker's position is that we will move expeditiously on this, but we will move thoroughly, and then we will see where the chips fall as it relates to the other committees. So I think that when we go back, we're going to be running up and down, doing all the things that are necessary that we do anyway, getting pulled out of meetings to vote, getting pulled out of meetings to go to another meeting, but that's what's happening in Congress right now. And this, we believe, is essential to the protection of our democracy. I have a very dear friend who texts me often, and he has reminded me on several occasions that our democracy is very fragile, and that while we are so secure in it and think nothing can happen, governments can change, and that they don't change by leaps and bounds. They change by giving up a little bit at a time until that little bit becomes a whole lot. And so when we look at what things that are happening in this administration, trying to control the intelligence, trying to control the judiciary, trying to control EPA and the regulations to keep our air clear and our water drinkable, trying to control consumer protections, trying to just take control of the government, shrink it, Department of State, take away the careerists who simply trying to maintain our relationships around this world, and then trying to shrink our position as national leaders and a standard for decency and respect. This is a government of, by, and for the people, and we're fighting like heck down in Congress to protect that more than anything. And so I know James has put a couple of, he always does, put a couple of notes on the table for me. I want to hear from you. I've given you some insight about, you know, some of the things that's going on down there, but I got to report back to DC. I want to tell them that we had a town meeting, that here's what my district, or part of my district, has to say about what's going on and what they expect and what they're concerned about. I had one in Plainfield the other day. I'm having this one, and we're going to have more in the future. So I thank you for coming out here. I thank you for taking the time to hear from me. I'm going to turn it over to you to ask the questions. I have James G., who is my Chief of Staff, Carrie, who's my Deputy Chief of Staff, Carrie Osmond. I have Jordan Lewis and Petra Gaskins in the back. The scheduler, if you can't get in touch with me, blame her. Jamie Gilmartin, right Rob Matos Moran is right out there. I'm sure you've dealt with him on cases. And I have Mike Shanahan, who is our director, my press secretary. I got it right. I call him everything. And then I'm fortunate enough to have 2 very smart students who are interns working with us, who are out there manning the desk. I don't think, did I forget anybody? Ah. And the person that may run up here and tell me everybody that was here today is Delora Bastepi. She didn't think I could say her last name. So I just want you to know that my staff is here now. My staff is here during the times that we have, we just visit, and you can come and bring your complaints and concerns. We try to make sure that we stay in touch with all of our municipalities, and I hope you found that working with them has been helpful to you. Thank you very much. I'm going to go sit over there.
First troubled by the fact that Donald Trump has been able to do as much as he's been able to do in dismantling and in bringing our country so far back. And I appreciate the efforts to impeach him now, but what concerns me greatly is that he probably won't be, because the Senate is probably not going to affirm it. So, but I do still think it should go forward. But what concerns me more is that, do we need to have other legislation or something else put in place so that a person such as Donald Trump, a person of such, low character and morals, cannot get into office and then devastate as much as he can, and then we have such a hard time getting him out? Are there legislative, bills or something that can be done to perhaps limit the power of the president so that this type of thing can't happen again?
Thank you for that question. The fact that we have 3 codes, 4 branches of government, that was supposed to place limitations on any one branch of government. Is there legislation that you could introduce that would ensure that you don't have a Donald Trump? That's up to the voters. Voters have to pay attention to who they think they want to support and dig deep into that person's background and that person's work product to make a decision as to who you think should be your leader. And thirdly, we have to vote. We did not vote the way we should have voted in that last election. I don't know if, I think there were a number of reasons. People thought, no way in the world was anybody gonna elect this guy. Oh, she's gonna win, I don't have to go out there. Wrong. I don't like her. Wrong. And so, and he promised, he said, I'm a good businessman. We knew that he wasn't a good businessman. He said, I'll make good deals for you. Well, he's making deals, they're not for us. So the best thing we can do is to be informed voters.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to change the subject a little bit, but I do thank you for all the efforts in Washington. My name's Debbie Martinez. I live in East Windsor. Last year I was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. And right now, the 5-year survival rates are abysmal with this. In a way, I was fortunate. It was through lung cancer research that I'm on a new pill, oral pill, that's literally keeping me alive. Unfortunately, I will build up a resistance. I'm sorry, I'm not upset, I'm nervous that I'm upset. And so I'll have to go to another step, but eventually my options will run out. So I'm asking for your help in keeping the $20 million funding research level for, through the CDMRP for the fiscal year 2020. They fund, through the defense appropriation, they fund the lung cancer research, and it is a major, major funding for lung cancer. Currently the Senate is trying to do away with that altogether. We ask for your advocacy and leadership in preventing that bucket for lung cancer from disappearing. It is the #1 killer for both men and women in the country. In New Jersey alone, there's 3,390 deaths in New Jersey alone this year, and over 6,000 people will be diagnosed with it. And it is has never been, and it is not just a smoker's disease. Anyone can get lung cancer. The type of cancer I have, there is no known cause. It's a mutation of a gene. It's not hereditary, but it is a mutation. And they're finding, the other ask we have through the Go-To Foundation for Lung Cancer is for your support for co-sponsorship of the Women in Lung Cancer Research and Preventive Services Act. It's HR 2222 to support this young women in their 20s and 30s are being diagnosed with these lung cancers, and no one knows why. They have not isolated anything, and many of them are finding out when they become pregnant and through what they're testing and just by accident. And the same with me, it came out of nowhere, you know. So I thank you for your support for anything, and I do have a folder I can give you at the end. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. In addition to having had my bout with lung cancer, my mother had lung cancer, so I know how important it is. And one of the physician assistants working with me when I was diagnosed said, "Can we use you as a face of lung cancer? Because it doesn't seem like we have enough advocacy."
Exactly.
But I promise you that I will continue to support any kind of money that goes into researching and treating lung cancer. Cancer is a million different diseases. I am a member of Appropriations right now, thank God. And I am, one of the subcommittees I serve on is the Labor, Health, and Social Services, and the other committees that deal with the NIH and all of the institutes that do research and ask for money for cancer as well as other diseases. And I tell you, Rosa DeLaura is our chairperson of that subcommittee, and we are like laser focused on issues of cancer and issues of disparity, disproportionate research dollars. So thank you for bringing this to my attention. You said MCRP?
Here, I can,
Okay,
if you don't mind.
Just watch this.
Yeah.
thank you.
Here's a whole.
Okay, thank you for sharing. God bless you. And I pray that when your 5 years comes and you can't use that same pill, they got the other one right away, because the research is amazing that's taking
We'll
place.
see. Okay, thank
God
you
bless
very
you.
much.
God bless you.
Hi, thank you, Congresswoman, for coming here tonight and for reaching at this town hall and giving us all an opportunity to address you. So it was quite a few years ago when I got my driver's license. And I can remember when I had my driver's license as an 18-year-old, driving down, maybe going to the shore, and my windshield would be covered with insects. I'd have to go to the gas station and have it cleaned. Well, I can tell you with assurance that I could drive 500 miles and not have one insect on my windshield. So what is that telling us about climate change? I'm also an avid gardener, and the insects are gone. This year, there were no birds. In Plainsboro, very few birds in Plainsboro. Why 70% of all of our population of our birds are gone? And this is, you know, we didn't need young Gretchen from Sweden to go to the United Nations and talk about what's happening in terms of the environment. There doesn't seem to be a lot of advocacy within the United States. We have an administration who's rescinding the Clean Power Deal, just rolling it back, ignoring all of the advances that have been made in the last couple of years. I know that you're moving forward on the Green New Deal. We appreciate that. And I was wondering if you could give us some tactical initiatives that are happening as a result of that, and also what we can do on the grassroots level, because time is ticking very quickly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I wish these were easy questions, and I wish there were some easy fixes, but they're not. And a lot of this has to do with who's in charge of where the resources go and what kind of priorities that we have. And so a lot of this is going to happen when you have a different administration. While we're working on different administration, we're going to be working on the Senate that's going to work with a different administration. We passed a Climate Now Act and sent it over to the Senate, and it's just sort of stalled there. You know, we recognize that the EPA has just deregulating everything that's been regulated and to keep our water safe and our air safe. We know that this is, I mean, look, today it's 65 degrees, yesterday was 90 degrees. We understand that this climate is going through many changes. And then some of us understand that the way we live is affecting our climate. But the truth of the matter is that we have to have people who make the decisions as to where the resources get spent. Now, I tell you, Congress puts, at least the House of Representatives, puts money in the spending bills. We did not withdraw from the Paris Climate Act. Yeah. And we know that there's a lot of remediation that has to take place. But I can just tell you that I get it, I understand it, but we passed the legislation and it stalls in the Senate. And it's heartbreaking.
Hello, I'm Mark Pepper from West Windsor, and we've talked many times in the past. I want to thank you for being here tonight, and I want to thank you for not attending his inauguration back on January 17th. 2017.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you for starting that, that opposition, and thank you for being one of his biggest opponents. I think you have the record for most opposition to him. I don't want to say his name. I want to thank you for all the work you've done, all the things you mentioned, your work on sensible gun safety laws. I want to thank you for your opposition to the boneheaded plan in Mercer County to purchase an armored vehicle. I know you were opposed to that. Sadly, it passed by a 100% Democratic Freeholder board, 4-2. It's a very misguided and poor use of our taxpayer dollars. It could go to much better, as you know. I'm glad you mentioned the Green New Deal. And follow up with the last questioner. Among all the other things, the Green New Deal is the most essential thing we have to pass. I mean, all of it. We're running out of time. My sister-in-law is one of the leading environmental scientists she studies frogs. She's at Berkeley. Her and her husband, who's an environmental engineer, has told us for a long time, the problem's not oil, there's no renewable water sources. And they live in California. They're like on the front lines, as we are in New Jersey, of climate change. We have 13 fossil fuel projects in the pipeline. We have an organization called Empower New Jersey. You've probably heard of it. I think it's about 50 groups, environmental, citizens groups, begging our leaders in New Jersey to enact, including the governor, to enact a moratorium on all of these fossil fuel projects. It's just the wrong way to go. We're behind the 8 ball as it is. If we do more fossil fuel projects, we're that much further below. So I implore you to, help us, get that. Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, and thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you.
I've been a big supporter of yours. I have a couple of things that I wanted to ask about. One is, we need to talk about protecting the integrity of our elections. And I don't know what's being done about that. I'm a demographer, I'm an urban planner. I know the importance of the census, and nobody talks much about it. There was a big discussion about the question about, are you an immigrant, are you foreign born? But it goes a lot further than that. I'm just concerned that people are going to tamper with the census more gerrymandering than there's been in the past, and it's gonna dilute the ability of people to vote in the best interest of this country.
Okay, so we just had a meeting with the Secretary of State in New Jersey on the census, and we're gearing up now, and our office is identifying a couple of resource people that are with the 12th Congressional District on it. We understand that it's deeper than the question because the fear is already out there. So we're trying very hard in New Jersey, and I think they're probably doing this around the country, to find validators, trust questioners, individuals that you trust, that you'll answer the questions, you'll talk to them. Try to find how we can work through the faith-based communities for those who are undocumented, as well as just for everyday people who tend not to want, they don't want the government in their business. We're trying to talk to them about how resources are allocated, predicated upon how many people are in any given place and what their needs are. So we know that is a huge challenge. Now, election integrity, we passed a bill in the House, sent something over to the Senate. Mitch McConnell didn't work on anything, but he suddenly has said that he's going to do something, and we don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But we need lots of money appropriated to protect our upcoming election. And we're going to be fighting for that money, and it's important that the people are demonstrating how important that issue is. Because the only way this person who's the president now wins again is to steal it. And he's already invited the Ukraine, Russia, they're already there. Now China, everybody will be in it but the United States of America. We need to vote. And we need to tell our young people how important it is to vote for their well-being, for their present and for their future. And we need to tell people that we encounter in church, on the street, at work, at social clubs, and any place else, how important it is to vote. Don't assume that anybody that you hang out with is a voter. They've got to understand this sense of urgency. We're at a point right now where we've got to protect our democracy. This is people say, oh God, Bonnie, every time there's an election, you say, this is the most important election of my lifetime. This year? This is the most important election in the generations of people to come. Because that's what's at stake.
Yes, good evening, thank you for your efforts. I'm here to talk about something that you haven't addressed yet tonight.
I have.
You have not addressed it.
Okay.
I'm here to talk about something you have not yet addressed tonight. Specifically, House Resolution 246.
What is that?
You don't know what it is? You were one of 17 congresspeople.
Is this BDS?
Well, as I read it, it opposed efforts to delegitimize the state of Israel and the global boycott, divestment, and sanction movement. You were one of 17 out of 435 congresspeople to vote the way you did. You went against your own party. Thank goodness your own party voted the way it did. I learned tonight that you said you were a member of the Black Jewish Caucus. How can you explain that vote to me? How do you?
I will explain it to you this way. I do not support telling anybody that it is illegal to boycott. If it were not for boycotts, you wouldn't be talking to Bonnie Watson Coleman as a congresswoman. I would probably not even have the right to vote. Boycotts are a tool of the civil rights movement. I don't support the BDS movement. I don't support the single state solution. No, I do not. I do not support the single state solution. I do not support Netanyahu's single state solution.
This has nothing to do with Netanyahu.
Yes, I support support a two-state solution. I
As
have
do I.
have been on record as a two-state solution. I have been on record with the millions of dollars we continue to send to Israel to make sure that it is safe and secure in the environment that it's in. I will not say that I don't support boycotts. And you may find that I might be critical of other things that are happening. That doesn't mean that I delegitimize Israel in any way, shape, or
You
form.
voted that way. You put your money where your mouth is when you did that.
I'm on appropriations, and I voted for $3 billion every time it's come up for Israel, and any time Israel has asked for additional money so that it has the armaments and the support that it's needed to protect itself. So don't tell me where I put my money. I know where I put my money. Thank you.
Well, I'm sorry, you were next.
Kind of an odd thing, but I think there's an opening for the Democrats to be more nuanced in their position of being pro-life. I think there are a lot of, and I don't have numbers, large numbers to do this, it's purely anecdotal, but there are people that would support birth control if they knew that it was blocking fertilization. The problem right now, I think, among some of the religious rights is that the science isn't there. So I'm wondering whether the Democrats could make themselves a little more nuanced on this and saying, our position is women have the right to control their bodies. Our position is abortion is probably something that nobody wants. And as Democrats, we will fund basically contraceptive methods that are more, maybe not completely acceptable, but more acceptable to the religious right. Now, I'm thinking that if you could get 10% of the hardcore religious right to think about this, that might be enough.
Thank you. That's an interesting, first of all, you know the Democrats are not pro-abortion. We're pro-women's rights. And number two, you recognize that we fight all the time to get contraception access to any woman who needs it. And thirdly, you know that several of the right-wing groups fight us on providing contraception because they don't think that we should be doing that either. So if you come up with a good brainchild on how we convince people that we are not pro-abortion, that we are pro-women's life, pro a woman's right to make her own decisions, and that we do indeed support contraception domestically and foreign and across the world. That's what we do.
The issue is that, and it's not just me, but there's some recently read stuff on the web where people were saying, you know, I'm a kind of religious right person, and the science isn't there. Nobody can tell me what's going on in this birth control pill, whether it's preventing conception or implementation.
You know, there's a birth control that's been around. Oh, I know I've known it's been around for at least 5 decades that I may have had use for it.
Yeah.
You know, I know that it is evolved and that there are varying forms of it now. So I don't think that there's an absence of science. Perhaps there's an absence of looking at the true research that's been done over the years. It might very well be some of that.
I'm not sure. It's not my area of expertise, but
Thank you for
I'm hoping
asking
that this
that.
could be a strategic thing.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Anthony Betancourt. I'm resident of this district, have been since the 3rd grade. Well, first I just want to say, like, on the behalf of everybody, we're so happy that you're healthy, you're out running. We need you fighting for us. There's so much going on. I never thought I would be the type of person to attend a town hall, but that's how messed up things are going on. I just have, three, issues I'd like to ask you. The first one is probably the most personally relevant for me, and it's student debt. As you know, student debt is a $1.6 trillion problem now. And frankly, it's going to be 1.8, 1.9. You can look at a graph and see which way it's going. This problem is not going away tomorrow. I was wondering, do you support the complete and immediate bailout to the tune of $1.6 trillion to completely cancel student debt? That's the first question that I have. The second question goes to healthcare. And do you support a single-payer Medicare for all type system that takes care of all of our needs, and you go to the doctor, you walk out, and it's paid for because you've been paying your taxes? Do you support that system, or do you support another type of improving Obamacare type of thing? And the last question that I have, and it's a question / comment, it has to do with Donald Trump and getting the information out of him. I think we all know that he's crooked. I think we all know that he is definitely using his office to personally benefit. I think it's clear as day. I mean, if Obama owned a Hyatt in DC and still was running it, they would take it away. I know you're interested in getting his tax returns, and I'm sure there's a lot of bills out there that are trying to get his tax returns. The main problem with that is, assuming the Senate signs off on it, who's going to sign off on the bill to get Donald Trump's taxes? Donald Trump himself. So therefore, I don't think any legislation that you're going to do is going to get signed by him. So, do you support a constitutional amendment so that anyone that runs for president has to show their birth certificate and their tax returns, so we have no more burglarism movements and no more of people not showing their financial information in order to run? I don't think a law is going to get passed by Trump. And frankly, even if he's stupid enough to sign that law, the Supreme Court will rule it unconstitutional. Kavanaugh will have his back on that one.
We're not presenting that issue in the form of a
So you don't want
legislation.
a tax return?
We are doing that in subpoena.
Okay.
And so, and because there is an impeachment inquiry now, it places the request before the courts, let me use that term, it's the wrong term, at a higher level.
Mhm.
So he doesn't have to sign anything.
I
We sued several different entities that have his tax information. So we don't have to pass any legislation to get his tax returns. He's the first president of the United States of America who hasn't.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and so, I don't know that we have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I think we gotta learn from this. Same thing with birth certificates.
What if the next president doesn't show his tax
He showed,
returns?
Barack Obama showed his birth certificate, and the birther movement persisted.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's got nothing to do with the truth. Okay. Healthcare, Medicare for all, single payer. I think we should ultimately get there. I think that there are people who have bargained, collectively bargained, healthcare that they should have access to. I think everybody should have access to Medicare who needs it. Everybody.
Everybody needs healthcare.
Everybody. And I
what if I
think that,
can't afford it?
I think that's why I think there should be minimally as we move through the stages.
Mhm.
And I'm on a Medicare for all bill, so. But as I'm listening to these presidential, I know, that's what I just said, I'm on it, Bill. I love James Z. As I'm listening to the various, the presidential candidates and the things that they're saying and the nuances, and this is something that I was kind of like there anyway. Minimally, as we move to mature, to get to where everybody has same access to very good health care and can afford it, you need to have a government option. And the government option if that thing is going to depress the cost from healthcare from the private companies. Because if the government option is good enough and the government stands behind it, it's going to be cheaper. So hopefully we'll get there, but I don't think we're just going to jump there. I think Barack Obama did a courageous thing, and just like Social Security and even Medicare, all those huge things were not perfect immediately. Let's figure out what works best. And then student debt. Whose proposal is to cancel all student debt? Elizabeth Warren?
Currently Bernie Sanders is the only one who's saying completely cancel all the student debt. Elizabeth Warren does have a student debt bill, but she wants it, like, means tested.
So let me tell you, if we could find a way to cancel student debt, I'd be right there. But I mean, that's
We find a
$1.6
way to
trillion.
find money for the wars. No problem. Anytime you wanna blow up something, we got the money for that. But anytime you wanna help us, who is too expensive? Who we gotta take their money? And frankly, people are getting frustrated with that.
Who pays off the banks?
So,
Thank you, we paid off the banks.
Who
We
pays
paid
the
the
banks
banks.
that are holding these loans?
Well, there you go.
The banking system will collapse if that happens.
can you and I talk?
We do know what
Can you and I talk? I think we gotta do a number of things.
Yeah.
I think that this is incremental as well, because I don't know where that 1.6 trillion is for that, or for another war, or for another tax break. I think one of the things we need to do the next go round is repeal that tax bill, that Republicans.
And repealing the Bush tax cuts, do you support repealing the Bush tax cuts?
You mean that?
No, you have the Trump tax cuts, which were tax cuts for billionaires. And then we have the Trump tax cuts, it's like, oh, you like that billionaire? Then we give you some more tax cuts.
Okay.
So we can repeal both of them.
So let me just, you gotta make me stand up.
You're afraid to speak.
I think we gotta deal with student debt. I think we need to have systems that forgive student debt. I think that we have to ensure that there's no predatory lending as it relates to student debt. I think that we need to make college or technical school affordable and accessible. I think that we should have county colleges be free. So I think although that takes us in the right direction, I don't know how realistic it is to think that they're gonna cancel 1.6 trillion, but I think we need to figure out ways to help you all who are burdened with this student debt. Because you know why? Because you can't buy a house, and you can't buy a car, and you can't go buy clothes. So you're not investing in the economy. The economy is not growing because we've strapped you with too much debt.
Yeah.
So it is something that definitely has to be worked on. Thank you.
Thank you. Still got my vote though.
You know you gotta hold it for next year though, right? I'm not running this year.
Hello, everybody.
Hi.
I may be the youngest, except that little boy who's so cute. But my name's Leanne, and I'm from Plainsboro, New Jersey. I'm really nervous, but you're such an inspiration. That's the reason. But my question is, we talked about how we need to inform young people and how we need to bring them in. But are there certain processes or certain things that we have to do to bring those young people in? Because except for me, it's just there's no young people here, and these young people need to hear what everybody's saying. Because I agree with all of you, and we want to hear what you guys are saying.
How'd you find out about this?
I was upstairs doing my homework, and then I found out. And I was like, no, I have to show up.
We're advertising on Instagram,
Facebook, yeah. Twitter.
Facebook, Instagram. What else?
Twitter.
Twitter. So we're trying to, friend me, we're trying to notify people in the medium that they would know about. How old are you?
I'm 17.
And girls.
So,
Saturday, there is a program called And Girls that I sponsor as a founder of the Congressional Caucus on Black Women and Girls, and it's at Rider College. And Petra Gaskins, who's been our point person for it, can talk to you about it. You might be interested and want to come.
If I may take a liberty to jump in real quick though, as her director of outreach, the number one method of outreach is direct to direct. So you're gonna have my straight contact information. I would love to talk to you about how we can get your friend encounters, because the person who might need to invite your friends may be you. And so, unfortunately, maybe we couldn't get to all your friends right away, but I know who can.
Thank you. Thank you, Petra.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have two, one.
Hi, my name is Laura. I'm from Cranberry, and I just wanted to say I'm very proud to be a Democrat when HR 1 came as the first bill. I think it's the most important thing we can do to preserve our democracy, and I hope the Senate takes it up, but I think there's very little chance of that. I also want to say that immigration is one of my biggest concerns. I think what's happening right now is a stain on our country, and I don't know if we'll ever be able to eliminate that stain completely. But now I'm going to get more specific. HR 1046 is the bill that allows government to negotiate with Medicare for drug prices, and we have two New Jersey co-sponsors, which is Tom Malinowski and Andy Kim. And I know I've spoken with. I'm sorry.
No, it's my name.
I know I've spoken with you about this before. You probably don't remember, but and you're not co-sponsoring, and I'm just wondering why.
Am I not on this bill now?
You're not
The
on
bill?
I just Googled.
I'm not?
HR 1046.
That's the one that we're gonna mark up next week, right?
No, that's the bill that allows people to negotiate.
Yeah,
It allows-
now government to negotiate
With
directly in
Medicare.
Medicare, yeah.
Right. So,
If I'm not on it, it's because I haven't gotten on it, but I am on it.
okay, can you write it down?
Very good lady down. I did have some questions about that bill, I wanted to know, but I think they've been addressed. I was concerned about the pharmaceutical, what do you call those, the PBMs?
Benefit management.
The benefit managers, because they add on to the cost. And I was concerned about the pharmacies, because they add on to the cost. And so I'm like, if we're gonna do this, why aren't we just dealing with all three layers? Because it isn't just the pharmaceutical companies that are, whatever it is that we're doing here. And they said that if we negotiate directly with the pharmaceutical companies, then the PBMs and all get affected because the prices go down. And actually, the proposal may result in government working in that space that PBMs are working in right now, and they would be working in it at a not-for-profit way, which would reduce the cost. So I was concerned about that, but I had those questions answered. But thanks for reminding me that I'm not on it yet.
My name is Miguel. I'm from East Windsor. I'm from East Windsor. Once you get done with all the legislation, let me propose another one. That no president can pardon anyone being under investigation or convicted while he or she is in office. This way we would have avoided so many dangling of the carrot to Mr. Trump. That's one suggestion. The other suggestion is that I'm originally from Mexico, and a lot of the migration problems that we have in the United States is because of the drug problem we have in the United States, so lucrative. Not only that, but many of the weapons, assault weapons that are in the hands of the narcos in Latin America come from the United States. So I would suggest another piece of legislation, if you have the time, is that anyone that is found selling or transporting a weapon out, an assault weapon outside the borders of the United States, is a federal crime. That should be treated as such. That would be my suggestion. I lead through those.
I like that.
I lead through that violence. So anything that help, really will help in the migration program.
In addition to trying to just ban assault weapons, period.
No, I'm good.
really want to thank you for doing this tonight, because I know this is the time that Congress people are allotted, why you're not in session, and so many don't. So the fact that you do makes me very proud that you're.
I appreciate that.
My question is, kind of on the same topic. As the impeachment hearings ramp up and probably will be really hitting their peak right around the holidays, my concern is that if the Congress goes on break again at that point, we're going to lose all the momentum we've got. And I just want to know, are you aware that, is the leadership prepared to work right through the holidays?
So, you know that, they're working right now.
Yes.
And we haven't lost any momentum. As a matter of fact, the president is so upset about what's going on, he opens up his mouth and gets into trouble more. Because he knows that the leaders of those committees and members of those committees are down there working now. Nancy Pelosi is not guaranteeing any time frame, because she, and we all know just how important it is to cross your T's and dot your I's, because you get one shot at this. So if it requires working through holidays, we will work through holidays. There was a whole discussion before coming home. We shouldn't go home to our district, we need to stay here in DC. And finally, leadership said, we're not gonna be doing bills on the floor. So the only people we need here right now are the ones that are working specifically in these committees on these issues, so that we're prepared when we come back to be able to do what we have to do. So I assure you that there's not going to be any period of time where no one is working on this.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Linda Hay, and very happy you're here.
Thank you.
I have several questions. I could go on all night. What happens if they fail to comply to the subpoenas? Because it seems to me, no matter what we say, they say, oh, I don't care.
Ma'am, I just think it has to go through the courts. I think it's very frustrating, it's scary. We've never been here before. We could end up, I guess, even before the Supreme Court, trying to get these, yeah. And here's the bad news, guys. They've been stacking the courts with some really tough people. And so, I don't know what's gonna happen first, whether or not we impeach him or we unelect him, one or the other. But I tell you that we're not gonna give up, we're just gonna keep pushing. And we gotta go to the next court, we go to the next court. We gotta go to the next court, we go to the next court. And the people have got to be heard from. Even the Supreme Court and the courts in this country need to hear from the people.
I feel like I read on Facebook, 120 bills were passed by the Democrats, and then Mitch McConnell helped 200 now, but I feel like I don't even know what those bills are, and I'm relatively informed, and people, who I run into who know absolutely nothing, don't have a clue, and it seems like it would be more useful than saying he's holding it up, to say what you passed, because I don't think people think the Democrats are doing these far out things. They don't understand that these bills help them.
So, were you here at the beginning?
I got from you what's been done, but I feel like most people
Well, can I
don't
tell
know
you that
what's been done.
you can go on the website, dems.gov, and you can see every bill that the House passed, and you can see the status of the bill, and you can also see bills that are being marked up.
How do you get people to know that versus just numbers? I'm sure you all see it on Facebook every day.
It isn't just numbers, that's the point. If you go in there and it'll.
This is the second town hall we've had this week, and this has been raised. So we're gonna put it on the front of our website, like all the bills that we've passed, what they cover. This is the second time it's been brought up this week.
Yeah.
So.
But it can be accessed. Anyway, but we'll try to facilitate the 12th Congressional District being kept up to date.
What would your link?
One more thing?
Yes, I talk all the time.
That's all right.
Every person in every supermarket, and when I'm online at TJ Maxx and Marshalls, and talking to these people on the register who are under the age of 25, I'd say, and they're all concerned, but they really know hardly
I'd love to, you tell me how to do that, and I'd love to, because the town hall is open to everybody. And so, I'm so happy to have, a couple of the younger people here today, and, I wish, we will try our best, but thank you for that,
What could I tell people? Like, I talked to this one person in
What do you
Marshall
wanna
all the
tell
time.
them?
I
About
told him
what?
he should run for office someday, because he's interested, but I don't, could I say he should contact your office, or some way to get him involved? I
Okay.
feel like these people are eager to go, but they don't have a clue how you would start.
well, if you've got people who are interested in the politics, which is not something we're really discussing, you guys. If you're interested in the politics in the community, and you're thinking that you might wanna run for office, or you know someone who might wanna run for office, you need to have that person touch bases with the local, party, Republican, Independent, Democrat. And they need to show up at their meetings, and they need to volunteer on campaigns, get to know the people who make the decisions about who's gonna run for office. Every municipality, and I know there's a very active Democratic committee here in Plainsboro, but I'm not just talking about Democrats, I mean, it's Republicans and Independents. Every municipality has an organization devoted to getting people to get engaged.
Okay, I'll pass that on.
Thank you, thank you.
Good evening, Congresswoman. Rich Hayes from Monroe Township. So, first of all, I agree with everyone. The faster you can get rid of that guy in the White House, the better off, not everyone will be. But I want to echo the comments made by the young woman who was just up here. If Mitch McConnell is leading the Senate, then nothing's going to get done. And I wonder if, your Democratic colleagues in the Senate, I think in general, they get more media time or press time than 500 the House of Representatives. I never hear them talking about, because when those laws, that legislation is passed in the House, you're not doing that in a vacuum. These are real issues by people throughout the country. But we never hear our Democratic senators talking that up. What's not getting done for the people of this country because of the Republicans in the Senate, and particularly Mitch McConnell. I mean, he lived to stop one judge from getting to the Supreme Court. Yeah. And now he's sitting on all sorts of things. So, what's the interaction between, the House, Democrats in the House and Democrats in the Senate to work together to make this, one of the major issues for the next election?
Good.
Yeah.
So,
Which issue?
All the legislation.
All the
and
House is
is-
going to be some legislation.
Yeah, I mean, how many people really know what's been passed? And you could put out all the things, you could have 236 Democratic Congresspeople.
Okay.
But it's not gonna get the same attention as senators every night. They have plenty of access, whether it's CNN, MSNBC, every major news network.
Well, people are kind of focused right now, if you see on all those programs, even with the Democratic senators and Republican senators actually, they're kind of focused on the impeachment stuff right now, or the presidential candidates, or, talking about their various proposals. But I will tell you, Schumer and Pelosi do meet, and they do discuss strategies, infrastructure. They went over to see the president last week, and he said, we're not gonna talk about infrastructure till you all stop talking about impeachment. What the heck?
But my expectation isn't that anything is gonna get passed.
So here's the thing.
But, I'm told that Democrats can walk and chew gum at the same time. And so when these Democratic senators are getting their, 2 minutes of airtime, they're doing our country a disservice by not pointing out all the things that are just waiting to be done. Trump is talking about Democrats, all they want to do is impeach, and that couldn't be, any farther opposite of what the reality is.
Well,
and I think I know, you know.
That's okay.
Our Democratic senators are not doing the job that we
I
ought to.
think we could try to pivot from the impeachment to the for the people agenda kind of thing. I agree with you, it's not been enough, it's been focusing really on impeachment. I would tell you that one way.
The House is focused on impeachment. The Senate's not.
Well, when they're invited, they don't invite themselves on these programs, they get invited.
My name is James G. I work as Chief of Staff. One of the things that we've done this Congress that we haven't done before is that we try to put all of our legislation with a member of Congress. A member of the Senate. So we introduced a bill, the Congresswoman introduced a bill on guns, to make guns, you have to register your gun like you register your car. Super controversial. We did it the first 2 months she was in office, and it sat. Then we reintroduced it this time with Cory Booker. Now he's using it to run for president, but we did that on purpose. The same thing with our bill on EITC. The Congresswoman sponsored with Senator Sherrod Brown. So we recognize what you're saying, and what we try to do is the bills that the Congresswoman actually supports, because we have better ideas than the Senate. We try to get a senator to be on the bill too, so we try to do that. One of the big issues is redistricting, right? So like the way that members of Congress have cut up the districts, people are in the Senate, they are less free. They are scared. Senators are much more scared, much more cautious about what they do, whereas the House members are the ones where their ideas are coming from. They get all the TV time, but they are less courageous than the members of the House, as you can see. And so the best thing that we've tried to do is to change our strategy on legislation by linking it, forcing you to support our bill. So when we do our press release, Sherrod Brown is on it, When we had to do our press release, Cory Booker's on it. So we have like 4 or 5 pieces of legislation that we've had since we've been there, but this year we put it together with the Senate. So.
I'll tell you what, we're gonna put the information on our website, you feel free to share it.
Well, senators have a lot more influence than I will in sharing it to a
Not
broad
really,
audience.
not really.
Thank you very much.
Nobody has more power than the people. I'm told this is my last question.
I'm glad it's me.
Give me the dog.
I'm Joanne Canone. I'm from Robbinsville. And unfortunately, I'm with Chris Smith. But he doesn't hold town halls. So that's why I'm here. And I work for you.
Thank you.
So, one thing I want to say is everybody in this room has a responsibility to talk to their neighbor. Don't depend on Bonnie to put the word out. We have to talk about the pipelines. We have to talk about Obamacare. We have to spread the word ourselves, whether it's through Coalition for Peace Action, Sierra Club, New Jersey environmental groups. We have the Empower New Jersey is 80 groups together. And we have to, but it's up to us to do our homework and spread the word. Whether it's, I watched Rachel Maddow last night, or, it's up to us. Talk to your neighbor, talk to the person behind you in ShopRite. Just get out there and do it.
Thank you.
And
You're
thank
absolutely
you.
right. Thank you. Before we close out, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank the Deputy Mayor who is here, Neil Lewis, and Councilman David Campbell, who is here or was here, I'm not sure if he's, there he is. How are you? It's good to see you. And I want to thank Sharon Mitchell, who is the Executive Director of the Library. Thank you so much. But mostly I want to thank you all for giving me the opportunity to interact, share what I think is happening just a little bit, and thank you for asking again about what the heck is happening down there, because we will put it on our webpage so that you can see it. Thank you. God bless.
I don't think I've had any greater challenges with my mouth shut. So I just wanted to express my appreciation to Bonnie for coming out, especially appreciate you all for coming out. And the one thing that she mentioned, she said repeatedly, bears repeating, and that's, in my opinion, that 2020 is the most critical election that I